This is the moment I've waited for. The stage is bright and I can finally own. And we will always be free.
Before the sun even touched the horizon, the small coastal village in southern Philippines lay wrapped in a soft, bluish quiet, the kind of silence that held both peace and hidden struggles. Wooden houses stood close together, their walls thin enough for the early morning wind to slip through. The ocean murmured gently in the distance, as if whispering comfort to anyone awake before dawn. Inside one of the tiniest homes, Liam Reyes, a slender 17-year-old boy with tired eyes but a determined heart, sat near a cracked window. He had barely slept. Music played softly from an old second-hand phone, its screen flickering like a candle struggling to stay alive. Liam listened to the warm, nostalgic voice of Elvis Presley, his childhood hero, his invisible mentor, his quiet companion through years of hardship. His mother, Alma, moved around the kitchen quietly, folding clothes that still smelled faintly of seawater from her work at the nearby fish port. She carried a gentle strength, the kind that grows from years of sacrifice. She pretended not to notice that Liam had skipped dinner again the night before, choosing instead to practice until his voice grew hoarse. Liam always hid his hunger behind a smile, but she always saw through it. The small home felt worn, but within its faded walls lived a love stronger than poverty. Sunlight slowly crept through the window and found Liam sitting with his knees tucked close, his face calm, his spirit restless. The soft glow lit up his dreams, which felt too big for a boy raised in a place where most dreams were sacrificed for survival. Outside, fishermen prepared their boats, their silhouettes moving like shadows across the sand. Life in the village followed a predictable rhythm, but Liam's heart beat to a different tempo, one shaped by music, hope, and a desire to lift his family out of the struggles that had defined their lives. As he looked out the window, the horizon stretched endlessly before him. It felt like the morning of Liam's departure arrived with a sky painted in soft shades of gold and gray. The village still slept, unaware that one of their own was about to take the biggest step of his life. The air felt unusually still, as if even the wind paused to witness the moment. Liam stood outside their small home with a backpack that carried more hope than belongings. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear alone, but from the weight of everything this journey meant. His mother walked beside him, quiet but strong. Her steps were slow, steady, and full of unspoken prayers. The world beyond their village had always felt unreachable to her, a place filled with possibilities she could never touch. But today, her son was stepping into that world, carrying a dream large enough for both of them. The bus to the airport rattled like it was held together by faith. Liam sat by the window, watching the landscape shift from humble homes to busy towns. Children playing barefoot on dusty roads faded into the distance. The familiar world he knew so well slowly slipped away, replaced by wide highways and towering billboards that seemed to whisper about bigger dreams and bigger challenges. At the airport, the noise and bright lights overwhelmed him. People moved quickly, speaking in accents he wasn't used to hearing. The smell of coffee, perfume, and polished floors created a strange mixture that made him feel both excited and small. Liam clutched his backpack tightly, remembering the handwritten letters inside, messages from neighbors, teachers, and friends who had cheered him on through every practice session. When the plane finally took off, the pressure in his chest tightened. He looked out the window as the land beneath him shrank into miniature patches of green and blue. The ocean stretched endlessly, reminding him of home yet separating him from it at the same time. Somewhere deep inside, he felt fear, hope, and determination swirl together like a storm preparing to break. As clouds wrapped the plane in white silence, Liam realized this journey was not just a flight across continents. It was a leap of faith, a chance to prove that even a boy from the simplest beginnings could rise, shine, and maybe, just maybe, change the world with a single voice. The America's Got Talent theater stood like a giant breathing organism, alive, buzzing, and intimidating. As Liam stepped through the backstage entrance, he felt the weight of its energy press against him. The air was thick with anticipation, mixed with the faint scent of stage lights, makeup, and distant echoes of applause. It was a world far louder and brighter than anything he had ever known. Contestants hurried around him, adjusting costumes, practicing notes, pacing nervously. Some carried confidence like armor, others battled visible fear. Liam stood quietly among them, clutching his small number tag, trying to steady his racing heart. Every beat felt like a drum announcing his unpreparedness, yet deep down, something stronger pushed him forward, the echo of all those nights he sang in the dark, hoping someone, somewhere, might hear him. From the curtains, he peeked at the audience, a sea of faces, lights, and restless excitement. The crowd moved like waves, rising and falling with every performance. The judges sat beneath their glowing panel, their expressions unreadable from afar. They looked powerful, distant, almost unreal. Liam felt the tremor in his fingertips return, stronger than before. The stage crew guided him to a waiting spot. The floor beneath him vibrated faintly with each cheer from the performers before him. Each vibration felt like a reminder that this place was sacred for dreamers, yet ruthless for the unprepared. He breathed deeply, feeling the cold metal of the microphone in his hand. It grounded him, reminding him why he was here. Time seemed to slow. The performer before him finished, and the roar of the audience filled the hall like thunder rolling across open skies. Backstage lights flickered, signaling that it was his turn. Liam felt a chill run up his spine. The curtain, thick, heavy, intimidating, seemed to guard the threshold between anonymity and destiny. When the stagehand finally nodded, Liam stepped into the light. The sudden brightness washed over him, blinding at first, then opening into a vast world of faces and expectations. The room fell into a still silence, the kind that demanded truth, courage, and soul. Standing alone in that spotlight, with thousands watching and millions destined to see him, Liam felt his fear turn into something powerful, an awakening. He realized this was the moment his entire life had been quietly preparing him for. For a brief moment, Liam stood motionless beneath the blinding spotlight, letting the silence wrap around him like a second skin. The theater was vast, stretching out farther than his eyes could focus. Rows upon rows of strangers leaned forward, waiting, wondering, expecting. The judges sat still, each with a gaze strong enough to pierce through nerves and doubt. Yet in that breath of quiet, something within Liam began to rise. When he finally opened his mouth, the first note flowed out soft, warm, and controlled. It carried the tenderness of his childhood, the strength of his mother's sacrifices, and the echo of every dream he had ever whispered into the night. The hall didn't react immediately. It listened. Truly listened. And as his voice deepened, the atmosphere shifted, subtle at first, then unmistakable. A ripple moved through the audience. Heads lifted. Eyes widened. An energy stirred in the room, as if an invisible spark had ignited the air itself. Liam's voice grew bolder, richer. Each note carried the familiar soulfulness of Elvis Presley, yet it was wrapped in something uniquely his, something raw, pure, and deeply emotional. His voice wasn't just singing, it was storytelling. It painted pictures of small villages, silent sacrifices, and dreams that survived even in the darkest corners of poverty. The audience rose slowly, almost involuntarily. Some stood with hands over their hearts, others with tears gathering, unable to stop themselves from feeling every tremor in his voice. It was as if his voice reached inside each person, pulling out memories they had buried long ago, memories of childhood, hope, heartbreak, perseverance. The judges, too, were transfixed. Their expressions softened, their posture straightened, and for a moment, they forgot their roles. They weren't judges, they were witnesses to something extraordinary. Even the toughest among them leaned forward, eyes locked on the young Filipino boy who commanded the stage with nothing but emotion. As Liam approached the final note, the music tightened, the room held its breath, and the world seemed to balance on the edge of his voice. Then, with stunning power, he delivered the final crescendo, strong, flawless, unforgettable. The silence that followed was brief but electric. And then, like a dam breaking, the theater erupted. Applause crashed through the room. Cheers soared. People cried, shouted, embraced strangers beside them. Liam stood in the center of the storm he created, overwhelmed, breathless, and glowing. In that moment, he wasn't just a contestant. He was a star, born right there under the blinding lights. The echoes of applause still lingered in the vast hall long after Liam stepped backstage. His legs trembled with every step, not from exhaustion, but from the overwhelming realization that something extraordinary had just happened. The stage lights no longer blinded him, yet the moment felt brighter than anything he had ever known. His heart beat not in fear, but in disbelief, a quiet storm of gratitude, shock, and rising hope. The crew moved around him, yet their movements felt distant, blurred by the whirlwind of emotions inside him. The roar of the audience still pulsed in his ears, vibrating like a memory too powerful to fade. Liam pressed a hand against his chest, trying to steady the flood of feelings inside, unsure how one moment could change the rhythm of an entire life. Outside the theater, the world reacted faster than he could comprehend. Cameras captured every breath he had taken on stage, spreading it across the internet like wildfire. Within minutes, clips of his performance began appearing online. Within hours, millions had watched. Millions had shared. Millions had felt something stir in their hearts. Across continents, people replayed his voice, some with tears, some with awe, some with a sense of comfort they couldn't explain. The world called him the Filipino star who set AGT on fire, a title he never imagined hearing, yet now it echoed across news channels, social media, and living rooms around the globe. Back home, in the modest village where the sun always rose gently and life moved slowly, Alma watched the performance on an old borrowed phone. Her hands trembled as she held the small screen close. The image was tiny, but her son's voice felt larger than the ocean beside their home. Tears streamed down her face, not from sadness, but from the profound joy of seeing a dream she once feared too fragile now shining brighter than the brightest star. Messages poured into Liam's inbox, stories from strangers who found courage in his voice, who felt hope return to their lives, who believed again because he dared to believe first. With every message he read, he realized his performance was not just music. It was a spark, touching hearts, softening pain, reigniting dreams. Later that night, Liam stood alone beneath the open sky outside his small hotel. The city lights glittered like distant galaxies, but above them, the stars remained steady and silent. One breeze brushed his face gently, and he closed his eyes. His voice had finally traveled as far as he had always imagined. And now, for the first time in his life, the world was listening.